Meow, 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 meow. Everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey, everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I am not able to get Danny to come back to do an English version of the Chinese stocks that he was, showing in terms of his thoughts about the Hang Seng Index. So I'm gonna use some of his charts with his permission to kind of go through my thoughts. First of all, the very summary of this whole video, if you don't want to watch, is probably gonna be a little bit long. The first thing is short term. You talk about weeks. I am staying cautious. When talking about medium term, which is anywhere from months, even up to like maybe 12 to 18 months potentially, it looks bullish. And if you're talking about longer term, you talk about years, I am still remaining cautious when it comes to the Chinese stock market, when it comes to the individual Chinese stocks as well. Part of the reason why is because if you just look at the performance of the Hang Seng Index, which is really going to be the best reflection of what Chinese stocks do, because most of the Chinese stocks are going to end up getting listed on the Hang Seng Stock Exchange in Hong Kong. So you're actually going to look at that more than look at any other, Chinese index. Is probably going to be the most reflective in terms of how the Chinese stocks are doing overall. You can see that my biggest problem over the last 25 years in comparison to the S&P 500 as well as the Russell 2000 small cap in the US, I can see a big problem is that there are going to be a period of time where Chinese stocks will outperform. And when it outperforms, it can be quite shocking in terms of how much it outperforms, right? But the issue is this: whenever Chinese stocks goes up, really you're talking about like US stocks will also go up at the same time. Like S&P 500 would go up if Chinese stocks go up, right? The problem is, conversely, if the US stock market goes up, there are actually a period of time where the Chinese stock market Hang Seng Index goes down. Now, that doesn't happen the other way around. Pretty much whenever Chinese stock goes up, I really couldn't find a period of time where, when Chinese stock when Hang Seng goes up, the S&P 500 is going down. I really have a hard time really finding that. Maybe during this kind of little bit of bleep right here, right before the great financial crisis. But I really have a hard time finding that evidence otherwise. Pretty much whenever Chinese stocks goes up over the last 25 years, the S&P 500 goes up, right? However, after the Trump administration has come in and after we started setting up, tariffs and things like that, which by the way, like a lot of the same policy have been also continue to be carried out through the Biden administration. A lot of things have really changed ever since that, trade conflict and the tariffs have happened. You can see that there are periods where the S&P 500 can do very well and the Hang Seng can do absolutely horrible during that period of time, right? And the same thing, like over here, around late 2020 to maybe early 2021, you can see there's a period of time where Hang Seng was doing pretty decent, but it starts plummeting. But S&P 500 just kept going on for like another year, just having a very, very strong bull market over here, right? Same thing so far. You've had Hang Seng just been plummeting for quite some time over here, when the S&P 500 just continues to go up. Now, the question is, are you thinking that there's going to be a rotation? Is this going to happen where like the U.S. liquidity is going to end up flowing into China? It doesn't seem like that's the case in the long term. You're talking about years. For the short term, maybe. For the medium term, maybe, right? But I think a lot of these kind of pumping of the Chinese stocks really over the last few weeks is more based on trading behavior, more based on human psychology, and also based on the fact that I think Chinese is increasing their liquidity. They're probably printing money, and finally able to get some money to kind of stay within their stock market and to kind of help stabilize it. Um, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Not so much that I think like U.S. equity is going to flow into China like that. That's probably not going to be that substantial. Not like over here, like that's been happening for a very long time. But because of a lot of issues with geopolitical risks, because of the trend, I think a lot of the U.S. investors are going to have a hard time to really try to enter China. But that can change, right? I mean, we don't know what the world is going to change to for sure. And the problem, though, is that the stock performance over the last few weeks, even though it's been doing very, very well for the Hang Seng is still a short-term trend. And on top of that, the stock performance of the Chinese market does not necessarily reflective of the Chinese economy itself, right? I just mentioned to you like geopolitical risk, unemployment of the youths. So, with that said, I think if you look at it, I would basically looking at this over the last 25 years, if you want to trade and try to capture some of these outperformances that can happen, I can see that. I would view this maybe more of like a trading instrument if I want to get into it. I'm not going to get into it because I do think that Chinese stocks do well, especially over the next like 12 to 18 months. I think the S&P 500, especially the Russell 2000 and small caps, and Bitcoin as well. I think all of these other financial instruments that I look into growing my assets, they're also going to do well. I mean, that's just the correlation in terms of what it's been doing, right? And there are also other financial instruments that I can show you on the other video that I did with Danny that could potentially capture some of these gains in the U.S. equities that could also benefit from China doing well in terms of their stock market, right? So with that said, if it is a mini bull market or maybe even a longer term bull market, I don't know, like nobody knows for sure. The biggest thing is there's always the human psychology, right? Because Hang Seng has really dropped pretty significantly, like really over the last 3 years. It's done nothing really since like 2018, right? You're going to have a hard time getting the retailers to really come in now at this point in time. And the big money, when they see that, they're going to take advantage of it. They're going to pump the stock and they're going to try to look for some short-term exit liquidity and try to keep you guys, a little bit of a short-term back holder. Although I do think that the long-term trend is turning a little bit more positive in terms of, I should say, medium trend, like maybe over the next like 12 to 18 months or so, potentially turning a little bit more positive. One thing is these are Danny's charts. These are the daily chart for the Hang Seng Index. You can see that pretty much all the indicators that he's showing, I'm not going to go through all the details because we went through details in another video separately, but pretty much you see a big red ribbon that's bullish, right? You see that there's a buy signal over here on the daily, just like 3 weeks ago, and ever since then price just kind of gone way up. You can see that this over here has confirmed on the second panel. You have the green light over here turn red light. You can see this is a very, very strong bull trend. You can also see that there's really not much retail, and pretty much all the retail exited on panel 3, and that you're starting to have a lot of whales on the daily just kind of come in, right? And then also MACD on the daily has crossed positively, and RSI they're all pointing up. So all of these are very bullish, right? The only problem with this is that in the short term, you're just getting way too overextended. Like it's way too overextended above the big red ribbon over here. And I think that we're at a point in junction time. I'm going to show you some of the other charts too. I'm going to show you that I think that we're at a point where we might be hitting some pretty strong resistance, and we might end up getting some relatively brutal correction, maybe from the 19,000s down to maybe like the 17,000s or so. And I can kind of show you why I think that is. Another thing is you can also look at it daily too. Like it's getting a little bit overextended. Even the whales are like, yeah, maybe kind of starting to take a little bit of profits over here. MACD is like way too far overextended. RSI is at overbought territory, right? If you look at it weekly, you can also see some very, very similar kind of thing where you did have a big giant buy signal over here, and price just been going up on the Hang Seng straight for 4 weeks straight, right? And the problem is it's just way too far extended from the red ribbon, right? You did have an initial starter red ribbon over here, but you can see like even during a downtrend, you don't get too far away from the blue ribbon. When it gets too far away from the blue ribbon, you're not having a retracement to the mean, right? It's just kind of ride the blue ribbon, kind of ride down, right? Right now, the red ribbon just started forming. You don't really have like that big rising red ribbon quite just yet. And price is already way overextended, right? So there's a potential for it to really definitely retrace back down a little bit. I can show you the monthly in terms of what I think it's going to go. But everything else, like, but if you look at it, everything still looks like it's very bullish, right? Like this second panel over here tells you turn from green to red, and you see like this purple ribbon over here basically is signifying that you have a bull trend. Whales are coming in, retails are leaving, right? Or not leaving, but there's just not as substantial there. You can see the MACD is crawling up, very, very nice separation between the two, and the top lines cross over 0. You can see that the RSI is also very, very much pointing up, right? The only problem is it's overextended by 2 measures. Just looking at this chart, right? One is it's overextended because it's way far away from the red ribbon. The other problem is that you look at the RSI, you can see there's a very, very, strong kind of hidden bearish divergence as price trying to hit the top levels over here. And the RSI is like way overbought compared to levels over here. So there's and I can show you later too on my chart, but there's a pretty strong hidden bearish divergence that could end up playing out. So I don't expect to just keep on going bam, 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 just keep on going up. I do expect to either go sideways, and it can be very, very painful sideways before the red ribbon is able to kind of catch up, or it could go down in price to kind of hit the red ribbon. And we kind of talked about it with Danny yesterday on his video. Now, if you look at the monthly tells you that perhaps for the longer term trend, at least for a few months, it looks positive, right? So first of all, his sell and buy signals for monthly has been historically pretty accurate. You see like the sell signal over here, and it really helped you avoid this big giant downtrend over here, right? The buy signal here may be a little bit noisy because it's buying signal going into a very thick blue ribbon that's like going down. So maybe this is more like a short-term kind of trade signal, but it's going to have a hard time to like really try and push for the blue ribbon over here. I think we have a much better chance over here now because blue ribbon is not as negative sloping. It's starting to kind of flatten here a little bit, and you're also getting really, how do you say that? You also really is trying to penetrate the red ribbon over here, and the red ribbon is also not as thick as it was over here. So I think this buy signal is maybe a little bit of a failure, but even your bought here and sold here is no big deal, right? Sell signal over here, has been very incredibly accurate. That really is going to help you avoid this big giant downtrend over here, right? Buy signal over here could help you capture some of the moves up here, but it's been a downtrend, so the sell signal is going to be what's more important, right? Right now it's kind of flipping buy, sell, buy. Like you really can see a little bit of a trend change over here. And Danny was kind of pointing out the entire way, and I've shown this on like Alibaba too a few months ago. I do think there's a potential, and there was no confirmation, but there's a potential that these Chinese stocks are starting to form a little bit of an Adam and Eve double bottom pattern, which Danny was really trying to horn into. And I do think that is looking kind of like that. Although I do think on daily and the weekly time frame, currently we're a little bit overextended. So the monthly, I don't know, I might be a little bit concerned for a little bit of retracement, maybe going sideways a little bit. And even if the candle goes sideways, like you're really talking about potentially going from like 19,000 to maybe like 17,000, right? Like that's a little bit concerning. Now, the big support, where are you going to find the biggest support? Is probably this volume shelf line over here. And I asked Danny, this volume shelf is supposed to say like 17,800, somewhere around there. This is going to be very, very strong support. So there's potential where price is a little bit overextended on the short time frame, just kind of bounce down before going up further, right? And it can take a few months for it to do that. But so far, the monthly is looking like there's a pretty interesting trend change here. Green light turned to red light. You're starting to see a little bit of accumulation coming in. The monthly MACD is starting to curl up, although I never really use MACD. The RSI is pointing up too. So all of these are pointing very, very positively, right? The problem, you can also see it here too. You see a hidden bearish divergence, right? Price had trying to push up above this level here, but it's still not at that level. But RSI has already exceeded that, right? So RSI is a little bit overbought relatively to what price has been doing. So this is a pretty, classic hidden bearish divergence that needs to work out. Plus, you're getting overextended on the daily and weekly time frame. Now, this is just Danny's charts. Now, if I look at my own charts, what are you going to see here? You're going to see this is the monthly chart of the Hang Seng Index. And you can already see that there's, some hidden bearish divergence as price trying to push above these levels, but not able to yet. But RSI is already kind of exceeding these levels over here, right? So you have a little bit of a hidden bearish divergence that's building up. But there are a couple of indicators that they're good to look at on the monthly chart. So for example, if you start to look at the 20-month moving average, and I was really kind of skeptical of the Hang Seng. I was going to say that, I was watching this and I really wanted to see it reclaim the 20-month moving average. And I really want to see the 20-month moving average really start to curl up, right? that's going to be the moment where I'm actually going to give it a chance to say, hey, things really start to turn around the corner here, because it's just been served as very, very strong resistance throughout the entire bear market. And you're really not going to start getting a bull trend unless you're going to start seeing a curl of the 20-month moving average to turn from negative sloping to positive sloping before you really have a chance to do that, right? So same thing over here. You're going to have a little bit of a trend change here and really turn into a bear market, right? So you're really seeing this curl up here that tells us, hey, potentially you could be having a little bit of like a longer term, maybe like for months, maybe around anywhere from like 12 to 18 months of potential improvement here, right? And on the monthly, looking at Bollinger Band, it looks okay. It doesn't look too overextended, except for the fact that you have a bearish divergence underneath. You look at the Ichimoku cloud, it's broken above these, very key important levels over here with the conversion, and the baseline or the Tenkan and Kijun line over here is broken above both of these. I think eventually it is getting a little bit too overextended from the Tenkan down here, blue line. During a bull market, even for a mini bull market, you really want to see price crush the Tenkan or the conversion line, the blue line over here, and maybe back test it to kind of use it as a little bit of support to kind of push price up higher. Right now, price just way overextended from the Tenkan or the conversion line over here. So there's a potential that Tenkan can serve as a little bit of a magnet to kind of bring the price back down, kind of find some support before pushing up higher, right? If I look at the 2-week Ichimoku cloud, that's going to show you even a more clear picture as to why I think we're at strong resistance. And same thing here, right? Like you're talking about RSI kind of going back to the same level over here, but price is a lot lower. You have a relative, hidden bearish divergence over here. And not to mention, price right now is pushing on the underneath side of the Ichimoku cloud on a 2-week chart. And the bottom of the cloud is around 19,500, which is right around the price right here, right? So anytime we're trying to push against the cloud, especially clouds thick like that and there's red like that and it's downtrending like that, the cloud's going to serve as potential resistance. So you're looking at a potential, strong resistance level over here. I don't really expect it to kind of push through on the first try, because there's already a lot of bullish energy has already been exhausted to try to make this happen. So what ends up happening, usually you're going to have a little bit of retracement down, right? What are retracements down to? Well, you're talking about these Tenkan and Kijun lines down here, which is around 1700s, around mid-17,000s, around mid-17,000s, right? And I would not be entirely surprised if it retraces back to like the 17,000s, maybe the 17,800, what Danny was saying, or maybe even potentially lower, and maybe just kind of wick down a little bit lower to test some of these levels over here, right? But you're at pretty strong resistance over here, which is something to consider. Now, if you look at the weekly chart, you're also potentially hitting the top of the cloud over here, punch through the bottom of the cloud like it's butter on the weekly, but you could potentially enter the top of the cloud. Now you can see the top of the cloud could also potentially serve as resistance, right? It did over here, it served as pretty strong resistance back in January 2023, and also continued to serve as resistance throughout the entire half a year of 2023 on the first half, right? Before continuation of the downtrend. Right now, you see a little bit of reversal over here. You are maybe making a little bit some of these higher highs over here after a higher low over here, right? So, problem is you are hitting some resistance. The top of the Ichimoku cloud over here is around 19,700s. So that's another confluence of issues that you might run into, right? Plus, you see price over here is lower than that point over there, right? But RSI has been a little bit more overbought compared over there. You can see this, hidden bearish divergence that's happening. So I do think that things are maybe a little bit getting a little bit overextended, and there is a potential for you to retrace, right? It could retrace on weekly to the bottom of the cloud over here, which again, what would that be? Would be the 17,000s, around the mid 17,000s. There's a lot of confluence in terms of resistance and support levels, right? If you look at the bull market support band, by the time when it gets down to trying to backtest some of these things, I think the bull market support band right now is also, where is it? Around the 17,000s, around the mid 17,000s. So I think you can potentially find a lot of support down here too, if it was going to retrace. Right now, it's just way too far overextended from the bull market support band. I think at some point it's going to end up retracing back down, especially when I see a confluence of resistance above. Now, That's what I meant by short-term cautious. And that's also what I meant by medium term. Potentially, you're gonna over the next 12 to 18 months, you might have like a mini bull market that could work out, pretty decent in terms of increasing a sign for increasing global liquidity because China might be printing money, increasing global liquidity in general. There are some positive signs over here, which is going to be great for U.S. equities and going to be great for small caps, IWM, Russell 2000. It's also going to be good for the assets like Bitcoin because these are more cyclical. These are more sensitive to global liquidity. So that's kind of what I'm seeing now. With that said, am I absolutely sure that you're going to end up hitting resistance over here and it's just going to keep plummeting down? The answer is I can never be sure about that. Nobody is sure about anything, right? The reason why I say that nobody is sure about anything is because if you look over here, around, I would say around 2001 to 2004, you can see that you have like almost like 10 big giant green candles just going bam, 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 and just keep going up from lower part of Bollinger Band to upper part of Bollinger Band and really flip the 21 moving average, from negative sloping to positive sloping. Throughout the entire time, this whole move right here was really made on a lot of significant bearish divergence, and it just was able to just overcome and just push all the way up right on the RSI. So even though you have bearish divergences, sometimes you can have bearish divergences that just getting like negated. No problem. Like when you get to like the fifth candle over here, you would imagine that hey, things are a little bit overextended. RSI is like way too high compared to over here. Price over here, there's a pretty clear, very strong hidden bearish divergence, but it didn't care. It just kept going up. Eventually, end up retracing back to the 20-minute moving average, right? And are we going to see the same thing where it's just potentially just keep on bam, bam, bam going up to the upper Bollinger Band, which is going to be around 21,000, 22,000 range, and then getting rejected and then retracing it back to 19,000 going up further? That's a possibility, right? I just don't know, like in terms of how much, even if you have a lot of these different resistance here, it can surprise you sometimes, especially when it comes to the Chinese stocks. It can surprise you. And Danny was just kind of saying like, he's been in the Chinese market for quite some time, and there are periods of time where Chinese market they just outperform you, and as a retail investor or a retail trader, you're just gonna miss these moves because it's just going downtrend like crazy. Next thing you know, it just goes up like crazy. Like you're just not gonna be able to catch these moves, right? So that's something to consider. But with that said, like you can clearly see one thing I wanted to point out too is around October 2022, the RSI is like in the low 20s. This is absolutely incredible. Like throughout the entire history that's available on the Hang Seng Index, RSI has never been that low. This is like the lowest point that it has ever gotten. The question is going to be this: is there something fundamentally wrong with this market? Is there something fundamentally wrong with the economy that is trying to represent? Or is it a potential buying opportunity? Now, I think most likely, if you're a trader, that could have represent a very strong buying opportunity, especially if we were able to trade this move, would retrace the RSI up to 50, and you say, oh, it got up to 50, is that a negative sloping 20-month moving average? I'm going to sell here. That would have been a good trade, right? And sure enough, price like dropped back down a lot further and got back basically close to this level over here, right? The question would be, that would have been a good trade, but I'm still not sure whether or not that would have been like a good level for investment because yeah, I don't know what this means, right? But if you were an RSI trader, that would have been a perfect opportunity to buy, to trade this move, right? That move has happened. And right now we're maybe potentially getting ready for a longer term move that might be happening over the next 12 to 18 months. We'll see what happens. Now, with that said, I'm going to move on to some of the individual stocks here. I got the charts from Danny for several of these stocks, one of which is FUTU. FUTU is kind of like the Chinese equivalent to Robinhood. It's a pretty good trading app. A lot of people use over there. It's a really infiltrated market over there. And as you can imagine, when the Chinese stock market was heating up around 2021 or so, you have a big giant buy candle over here on the monthly chart. This is a monthly chart, right? And the price really went from all the way from like $8 all the way down to like $204. You're talking about some significant gain over here during this period of time, right? But then since then, prices plummeted all the way down to like like 20s, and it's been a pretty brutal run for the bear market here as well, right? Right now, really starting to see a little bit more of a bullish trend in terms of what's happening on the monthly here for FUTU. You can see that there's a development of a red ribbon that has really not gone away for closer to like 8 or 9 months now. And you also recently just ended up having a buy signal over here when price was around $50. And Danny, when he was looking at this red candle over here, was like, this looks like a pretty good setup. You look at the very fact that the whales are slowly kind of increasing and the retails are kind of slowly leaving. You look at the second panel where the green has turned to like a purple trend over here. If you look at the monthly MACD, it's got a bullish cross. If you also look at the RSI, it starts on its trend up over here, right? So this looks like the beginning of a bull trend, and he alerted his followers to potentially look into this around $50 or so. Sure enough, like prices shot up to like 80s now. So the problem is always with chasing, right? Like, are you going to end up chasing this? That's always the question. Because if you look at a daily chart, it's been going on pretty bullish for quite some time, right? It's got a very strong red ribbon over here. And price just kind of, really just going up high, high, high. You have a little bit of a noise of a sell signal over here, but that's okay. The whole reason is because things got a little bit way overextended, but it's still a very bullish trend over here. So this is probably just a noise, right? And sure enough, a couple days later, it turned, bullish again. And this whole thing right here over the last 4 weeks has been very, very much a bullish trend. And the buy signal for Danny in terms of the daily chart is really around like the 50s or so on the monthly, and on the daily is a little bit different. Is maybe a little bit more like in the high 50s, low 60s or so, right? But you can see that the trend is very, very much up in all of these different panels, right? Including the fact that you have increase in whales and you really don't see a whole lot of retail, including the fact that you had a daily MACD cross, including the fact that you look at RSI, it just looks very, very beautiful, right? Now, the problem is that you might be starting to hit into some of the resistance right above, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't think it's quite there yet, but I think it's probably around like 88 or something like that. I'll show you why. And things also just a little bit too far overextended above the red ribbon over here, right? It's not that apparent here on the daily chart, but if you look at a weekly chart, it's really apparent. Probably just gotten really way far away from the red ribbon over here. So it could still end up overextending a little bit further, but like eventually you're going to end up getting punished. It's going to get either going sideways for a long time, or it could potentially have price drop back down to kind of test some of the supports underneath before going up higher, forming a little bit of a higher low, right? And if you look at all the signals underneath too, you can see that everything actually looked very, very bullish in terms of whales, in terms of the weekly MACD, in terms of the RSI. The problem is that everything seemed to be very overheated. Everything seemed to be very much overheated, right? So there is a concern for a correction, and in terms of how far is it going to push up before before you end up getting correction, probably right around here. Like you have some of the volume shelves up here from a couple of years ago. You have some volume history over here, and you're really talking about some price history maybe around like $88 or so. I'm going to show you here on my chart too in terms of what I'm seeing. So first of all, in November of 2022, somebody asked me about FUTU, and I actually charted this, and I don't even remember. I had to dig up on my own search history, and I found that hey, I was kind of noticing that it was forming a little bit of a ascending triangle over here. And an ascending triangle could either be a bullish continuation pattern, or it could be a bullish reversal pattern, right? Because basically what happens is it's basically trying to eat through all of this supply over here with increasing demand underneath, right? And this very much looked like an ascending triangle, and I drew this pattern over here in November, and I basically said, hey, it looks like it's got a little bit of a bullish look to it, eating supply for about 4 months straight, right? And maybe prices should up if you end up breaking the gray zone. And sure enough, eventually now I'm looking at the monthly chart here. sure enough, like right now we actually are breaking above the gray zone, right? What happens generally after you break the gray zone? You might have a little bit of a back test of the gray zone before bullish continuation. It doesn't have to do that, but I do worry because like the breakout volume really isn't that high, to be honest with you. The RSI is not looking exhausted. There's not really any like significant bearish divergences or anything like that. But the volume just really wasn't that supportive. So even if this idea of a ascending bullish ascending triangle is working out, I just worried that it will hit some of the volume shove resistance up here, right? And I really do see like a lot of volume resistance maybe up around like the high 80s. It could potentially end up getting rejected there, especially if we don't have the big volume to kind of support this breakout. You might even break down. There's always that possibility, right? Because the breakout volume is not that high. Or it could just end up doing a little bit of a back test. And if you end up doing a little bit of a back test, you do have a lot of, volume shelf support down here. It might back test around to the high 60s or maybe even like mid 60s. You have a lot of these kind of volume shelf support before bouncing up higher. But I do think that we're probably entering some resistance zone right here. Regardless, though, if you pull up the Bollinger Band, you can see that the 20-month moving average is really starting to curl up. It looks like a very, very nice bull trend. But another thing that also got me concerned is so far the month of May, it's kind of way above the upper Bollinger Band there, isn't it? Just like Robinhood, when it did this, it went sideways. So far, Robin has been going sideways for like a third month in a row, right under $20. I can potentially see FUTU doing a very similar thing moving forward. It can potentially just kind of go sideways, just punish it, or it can just keep on going parabolic. I mean, these are Chinese stocks. They're they can do whatever they want to do, but the trend is it's turning positive over here. And there's also a little bit of expansion of the Bollinger Band here, right? Like Danny Law just called this like crocodile mouth opening. You're starting to see that a little bit here, but because the volume is not that great, because you're hitting some resistance potentially up in the high 80s, I do wonder whether or not it's going to end up going sideways or even back test some of the levels down here before going up further, having further bullish continuation. But that's kind of what I'm seeing here. If you look at, yeah, again, resistance, right? You can't just overextend above the upper Bollinger Band. Eventually, if it expands it, price will go up along with it. But you can't just expect price to just keep on going up, right? The other thing is, if you look at Ichimoku Cloud, another confluence level over here is around the upper 80s. You're going to start seeing the formation of the cloud over here. Now, FUTU hasn't really been around for that long. It did have a bullish cross over here, right? Around, I want to say like November of last year, it did have a bullish cross over here, right? But it's also forming the beginning of the bottom of the cloud over here, and it could hit the bottom of the cloud over here relatively soon if it keeps on going up and continue this bull trend. And I think that's probably going to be confluence or resistance that you're going to hit. So that's what I meant by short-term caution. I just don't want to get too bullish because a lot of the move recently has already been made all the way from like the 40s all the way up to like the 80s, right? I don't want you to get off guard and like caught with your pants down, and you could potentially hit some pretty strong resistance up here. It doesn't mean that there's an annual bull trend. It just means maybe a little bit of consolidated sideways, like what CleanSpark is doing underneath the cloud before potentially pushing up through that, right? But you can potentially be entering some consolidation here. If you look at the 2-week, let me see if I put up the 2-week here. If I do the Ichimoku Cloud, you're not going to see as much resistance up here. If I do the weekly, you're also not going to see that much resistance up here. But the resistance is really going to come from like these higher time frame charts from the Ichimoku Cloud, from the Bollinger Band, right, and the volume shelf. So there's a little bit of a cautionary tale there, although I think that most likely, just like looking at Danny's chart, most likely you're going to end up having a bullish continuation whenever that happens, right? So that's FUTU. I'm going to go back to the Danny's chart over here. He also showed me another chart that he wanted to talk about, and we talked about this, which is JD. JD is a online company. It offers very similar services as Amazon. And JD's chart has been absolutely atrocious when it comes to the monthly chart. Like it just kept on going down, 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 for straight down for like 3 years. And the downtrend has just gotten worse and worse and worse. you can see that this is a monthly chart for JD. You have a blue ribbon that had extended for more than 2 years, and it just kept on getting thicker and thicker and thicker and more negative. It just kept getting thicker and thicker, right? Like back tested it a little bit, failed to break through, had a little bit of buy signal here, right? But the blue ribbon was just thickening. So I think this is a little bit of a false buy signal. You end up having a sell signal over here, and that helped you to avoid this whole downtrend down here, right? Although you might have taken a little bit of a loss, you end up buying there and selling there, but that's okay. You still avoiding like this whole thing right there. Now, we did have a buy signal for the monthly here for JD. The question is whether or not I would enter. Danny actually felt that JD looked good based on the daily and the weekly. But of course, he's also completely aware that it's also hitting, resistance, right? The problem is, like, you see it in daily, it actually looks very strong. Had a buy signal over here just like 3 or 4 weeks ago. You have a very strong red ribbon that's being built up here on the daily trend. Confirm over here with a very nice purple line going up. Confirm with the fact that you also have a lot of whales coming in, not a whole lot of retail left in there, right? The problem is, as price continue to kind of go up, you're seeing that the whales accumulation has actually slightly decreased over time. So things might be a little bit overbought here on the daily chart. Same thing over here. This is daily MACD, starting to see a little bit of curling under kind of thing. Still a bullish look, but it's starting to look a little bit over exhausted. RSI also look a little bit exhausted, right? And if you look at the weekly, like this is the same thing I was showing you with FUTU. It's just the weekly candle over here just way far extended from a red ribbon on the weekly just started to develop to just start happening, right? So eventually I think it's just kind of a little bit too far overextended. I think it's probably going to end up coming down and back testing this area down here. You do have a lot of supports over here in the high 20s, right? But I just I'm not sure whether or not it's just going to have continued bullish continuation. It's just way too far extended. And you're also hitting some very important volume shells over here in like the low 30s. So I'm just not so sure whether or not JD is going to break through. Although the trend's starting to look a little bit more bullish, right? You have less retail, you have more whales, and you have, weekly MACD is still pointing positive. The RSI does look very much overextended. And it actually, if anything, if you look from like the point over here to here, when price is a lot higher back here and RSI was a lot lower, you also can see kind of like a hidden bearish divergence over here too, right? Like RSI just way overextended. So somebody might end up getting punished if you end up buying here at resistance and when things just like way far overextended. And another thing that also got me a little bit cautious too with his chart. You do have a lot of positive things happening. You do have a buy signal over here. You do have the green light turn red light. You do have increase in whale accumulation, decrease in retail. You do have a monthly MACD golden cross over here, like bullish cross over here, right? RSI is also starting to trend the right way. The RSI really hasn't trended the right way ever since like the top over here, like a few years ago. RSI is finally trending the right way, right? So you have a lot of positive things going for it. Why do I think I'm worried about it? First of all, you're getting overextended over here. You're hitting some of the volume shelves over here, right? And you also on the daily also getting a little bit exhausted over here too, right? Now, the second thing is that the red ribbon is trying to push in. Sorry, the red candle is trying to push inside this big, giant, thick blue ribbon over here, which is still down sloping. It's flattening a little bit, but it's still very thick. And with this red candle over here, only is able to push up maybe like a little bit less than halfway of the blue ribbon. So there's still a lot of negative energy that's kind of coming down, and I'm just not so sure whether or not if this is like a spot to buy. And I'll also show you on my chart as to why I'm also a little bit more cautious about JD. Now this is my monthly chart of JD, and right off the bat you can tell three things that makes me very cautious about JD. First of all, this is the 20-month moving average, has been down sloping for really close to a couple of years now, right? Right now we're right underneath of that. I worried that this could potentially serve as very strong resistance. Right now it's 36.15 is what the moving average is at. And the price is 35.27, so it's not that far away from it. So far we did have a little bit of a wick up above. Maybe we're getting close to rejection over there, right? It's still negative sloping. It's turning a little bit flatter. It's turning a little bit flatter. It's flattering. It's flattening. It's flattering. But the problem is, like, I have a hard time really truly getting bullish here at resistance, right? On top of that, you also have a problem of this move up on declining volume, right? Which means that eventually, like, the bulls to push it all the way up to the 20-month moving average has already expended a lot of the bullish energy that has been, left in there. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, the next move, maybe not immediately, but closer to like the next leg is probably going to be down, is my best guess, right? The third thing I see, in addition to 20-month moving average, in addition to volume declining on this move up, is I also see a lot of, like, these kind of bearish divergences that are building up. For example, price over here is higher than the price over here, right? But the RSI over here is lower than that. So you're seeing some hidden bearish divergence. So you're going to end up having a lot of more bearish energy that's still building up that could potentially cause JD to need to go down some further bottoming behavior before I can say that it has really bottomed. Because at this look right here, it can go either way. It's favoring another leg down. I don't know whether or not this is like the absolute bottom. It could be. But the next leg is favoring downwards as far as I can see. But I don't know for sure. I'm just a cat. I'm dumb. The other indicators to kind of pull up, if you just look at the Ichimoku, there are some positive development that's happening on the monthly. You have the Tenkan line, which maybe is starting to kind of flip this Tenkan from, resistance over here. The entire bear market has been serving as strong resistance, right? Maybe it's starting to flip this Tenkan line, the conversion line, blue line over here, from resistance to support, right? Even if it flips in support, I think it would be reasonable to go back and back test it, or at least get close to it, before finding some solid good footing before going up there and challenge the Ichimoku cloud about in the 60s. And that, I'm not even sure. Like, I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, the next leg's probably down. And I'm also not sure in terms of, like, whether or not this is truly the bottom for JD, because this chart just looked absolutely atrocious. When I was looking at JD chart, like, around here, the only thing that's good about the JD chart was just how bad it looks. That's really how and the volume, like, selling volume is also increasing over here too, during the entire leg down, and the buying volume is now decreasing. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet for JD. I probably won't answer. Let me see if I can look at other time frames here too. Now, if you look at a smaller time frame, there are some positive developments that are happening, right? On the 2-week chart is kind of trying to flip the kitchen, the baseline over here, from resistance to support. Although you have a couple of tries up here that have really not been, successful. But it's good that it's trying, right? But you're also seeing the same bearish divergence, the hidden bearish divergence over the RSI. If I look at the weekly chart, it's trying to enter the cloud, which is promising, right? It did do that before. It got to the top of the cloud, but it got rejected. And one very positive thing is, I guess, is this week's volume actually is quite high. Like, you actually have a quite high volume over here, which may actually favor some continuation upwards. Maybe even get above the 20-month moving average that I showed you earlier. Problem though, RSI is starting to get heat up. Right? I think once it gets to around like the 70s, if it does that, it's gonna end up punishing a lot of people and end up chasing this move over here. But there are some positives here on a lower time frame that I'm seeing, and you have to start somewhere, right? Like, when you try and turn a bear trend into a bull trend, you have to start from lower time frames, right? I do see some pretty positive things are developing, but the RSI just look like way too parabolically overbought, and it does make me a little bit worried that we might be getting a little bit exhausted here. The only positive thing about it is it's inside the weekly cloud, and it's also got some pretty nice bullish volume over here over the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. So we'll see, but I'm still worried about JD. The other thing I also want to say, why I'm a little bit feeling a little bit better about JD, is because the bull market support band is really trying to start to go up, right? So as far as I'm concerned, can JD be bottoming? That it is possible that this was the bottom. It's very possible this was bottom. Even if it is, the next move could still be going back down to back test this level, in the upper 20s, before bullish continuation. And right now, if you just look at, you don't even need to pull out any like fancy indicators or anything like that, although I can. You're just eyeballing. It looks like we're just hitting resistance from this previous support level, right? We're just basically back testing this horizontal resistance from previous support that dates all the way back to not even March of 2020, but even back here, like you're talking about 2017, even talking about like 2015, right? This is a very, very important level over here. And if you just do a volume shelf, I'm going to pull up the volume shelf over here, the anchor volume profile, and just use the inception of the history. You can see that it's getting close to like hitting the bottom of this big giant volume shelf over here. And the bottom of this big giant volume shelf over here is around like 36, 37. So I think we're hitting some pretty strong resistance here. I'm worried about JD in terms of the short term. Medium term, depending on how the Hang Seng Index, which is the reason why I show you the Hang Seng Index anyway, because the overall index looks okay. So JD might look okay over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months. But so far, there are a lot of things that gets me kind of concerned with the JD chart here on the short term. Now, a chart that might look better than JD would be Alibaba. Baba also has a very, very big, if you look at this monthly chart of Danny's, you can also see like this big, giant, thick blue ribbon over here, but it's starting to turn flat. It's not as thick over here anymore. The previous SPY signals were hitting some pretty strong resistance. It didn't work out, right? But currently, we also had a buy signal for the month of May, and right now, price actually pushed through the ribbon. So the ribbon is also not as thick as it was back then. It's also flattening. So this is a pretty decent look over here. Now, in addition, Danny would also like to point out to the attention that there is a little bit of a double bottom over here, like an even Adam and Eve kind of double bottom over here, right? So there are some bullish development over here, but you're going to run into the same thing. I'm going to show you here in a little bit. Again, turning positive here on the trend. With the light down here, although the green line over here is still green, so technically it's still maybe a little bit of a bear trend, but you're starting to have some whales to come in, a little bit less retail over here in terms of percentages on the third panel. And the MACD has been positive for a long time, but it's doing below zero, and the RSI is crawling up, so there's some positive development over here, but we're not quite out of the woods yet, right? So if you would look at my charts, I actually also have charted Alibaba back in March 1st when I was asked about it, and what I was seeing really a downtrending 20-minute moving average. I see this potential Adam Eve pattern over here, and I was still a little bit concerned that whether or not this pattern is going to work out. I was still kind of negative on Chinese stocks at that point because the 20-minute moving average is still pointing down, and the next thing is going to happen is that the price is going to hit the 20-minute moving average, and it's going to be a real test, right? Because it got rejected once and twice, and it's the third time going to be a charm to kind of break through, right? You do maybe have a little bit of a slowing of the negative slope over here on the 20-minute moving average for Alibaba. So I was like, you know what? No confirmation, possible Adam and Eve. It could get rejected the third time. You have another leg down. You don't know, right? And the selling volume is also, not little. So it does make you kind of wonder whether or not what's going to happen. Well, what happened after that? Let's look at it. Let's look at what happened. Not bad. Baba. What happened after that was that it broke through so far, right? Now, just because it breaks through doesn't mean that we're out of the woods, not necessarily, because we also broke through here in July 2023. But the important thing is that the 20-month average is actually starting to curl flat and maybe even curl up a little bit here, right? That's the important thing, right? And you also have a little bit of a slightly increased buying volume over here. So like all these things are a little bit more positive for Alibaba. And that's why I think this has a better look than JD in general, not just based on Danny's chart, but also just based on traditional analysis. And on JD, you also don't really have this like possible Adam and Eve bottom. But for Alibaba, you actually have the possibility of looking like that. Now, just because it does that doesn't mean that you're out of the woods, right? Because you're also hitting a lot of these volume shelf resistance up here. And even if you pass by that, you're also going to have a lot more volume shelf resistance right above here too, right? So it's not necessarily mean that you're out of the woods. Plus, you might also having a little bit of a hidden bearish divergence that might end up building up as price can go up a little bit higher, right? So it's still a little bit worrisome. The price could certainly go back down and test the 20-minute moving average, or it can spend the next month kind of below it and just try to turn this thing flat before you're able to kind of flip it as support and go up. But there are some positive development over here with the 20-minute average actually crawling up, which it really hasn't been doing ever since like really like May of 2021. This is how incredible this downtrend has been, right? So if you look at the Ichimoku cloud, another thing also get worried that you might be hitting some resistance was because the Kijun is right above it, is around $91, right? And also, you see all these volume shelves over here. And I'm going to pull up the 2-week chart here. You also see that the bottom cloud over here is also around the low 90s, right? So that could certainly serve as a resistance level up above. There are a lot of confluence of resistance here that is, making me think that, hey, maybe we're not quite out of the woods quite just yet. If you look at it weekly, it's just starting to stick its head inside the cloud, but it could potentially get rejected from the cloud. Like I don't necessarily expect to end up, just push through, right? It can even go to the top of the cloud, which should be around like 95, 96 or so, before going back down and test the bottom of the cloud. And that could be a very, very brutal kind of thing for a lot of people. If they end up thinking that it's going to go up to 100, you have all these resistance right above, and next thing you know, you end up going back to the 80s. That's not funny at all. Like, that's terrible. All of this move over here, by the way, it's been happening on a hidden bearish divergence, and RSI has been getting a little bit more heated up here. They can probably use a little bit of cool down. So, yeah, a little bit worrisome there, right? You look at the bull market support band, though, it's starting to look pretty decent, right? But again, it's also a little bit too far from the bull market support band. For bull market support band, just starting to turn flat a little bit. So it's not inconceivable for price to kind of go down, back test maybe in the low 70s, high 70s, low 80s, before finding some bullish continuation, right? But again, this is also a Chinese stock. If it wants to run, you can just keep running. Like, you can just be all irrational and do all kinds of weird things. I don't know. But based on what I'm seeing resistance. I'm seeing we're getting close to resistance level, maybe around the low to mid 90s. And that could be a strong rejection level. And the support down below is going to be around the high 70s to low 80s. It's kind of what I'm seeing with Alibaba. Now, another one that looks good that have caught Danny's attention is SeaLimited. This is not really a Chinese stock. This is based in Singapore, but it's Chinese by proxy, I suppose, because they're probably exposed to very similar pools of liquidity in terms of global liquidity. But the chart for SE is also starting to look pretty good here. In terms of the daily chart, you can see that the buy signal had happened a few weeks ago, and it just kind of keep on going up, right? But the problem is also it looks like it might be a little bit overextended over here in terms of the daily chart, right? The whales have been in for the last few weeks, and the trend overall has been pretty bullish, but it just seems like a little bit overextended. But overall, even SC, like a lot of the Southeast Asia stock, also look very, very similar to Chinese stocks, probably because they also are benefiting from the same pool of liquidity that that you're seeing here with the Chinese stocks. Now, look at the monthly. First off the bat, you can already see that things are already like gone up way far ahead on declining volume. That's always a little bit worrisome because you're worried that the bulls might have already kind of spend all their energy trying to push up to this level, right? Where is the hard resistance level? And do I think it's going to end up hitting that? I think this hard resistance level, you're going to see a lot of confluence over here too. The hard resistance level is going to be around the mid 80s. It's going to be around the mid 80s over here. Why do I say that? Is it just because I can draw lines, or even maybe up to 90, right? Is it because I can draw lines? Yeah, I mean, like anybody can draw lines, right? But you have a lot of resistance right up here. It's the top of this volume shelf, right? It's at the top of the horizontal range where there's a lot of resistance here in the past, right? You're trying to get to it on declining volume, which is always worrisome. Right? You're trying to get stop, no more energy left for the bulls, right? You are also worried. I'm also worried now. 20-minute moving average. The good thing is 20-minute average is really curling up. This is a development of a bull trend. These 4 candles really did it. It turned the 20-minute moving average from negative curling to slightly positive curling. You're really trying to turn this into a bull trend over here. This is promising, right? But you're also hitting the top of the upper Bollinger Band, which generally causes a cause of concern in terms of resistance. Where's the upper Bollinger Band at right now? 82, 83, right? Next month, where's it going to be? Mid 80s, right? So that's another source of potential resistance. Another source of potential resistance is the Ichimoku cloud. Look at where the Kijun, the baseline, the red line over here is located. The good thing is it did flip the blue line over here, right, from resistance over here to support, right? So far it's a very, very bullish development over here. But things will also get a little bit when things get up to here around the mid 80s, it'll be way far away from the Tenkan for the conversion line. That most likely price and like you have to either go sideways or go down to kind of get close to the baseline. Sorry, not baseline, the conversion line, the Tenkan over here, before price could go up further. So I do see a little bit of cause for concern because you have a lot of confluence in terms of the resistance level here. Let's put the 2-week chart. The 2-week chart is going to show you're already at resistance. You're already at the bottom of the 2-week cloud over here. There's potential you get rejected over here too, because there's also a pretty significant volume shelf over here, right? So depending on what other stocks will do, like there might be a little bit more bullish continuation before a resistance level, or you might already be getting really close to it. It's a little bit worrisome, right? On the weekly, it tells a little bit of a different story because it did break above the cloud. But even if it breaks above the cloud, and if it goes a little bit further, most likely you're hitting some pretty important resistance over here that I showed you, right? And the RSI looks just way overbought over here, and it's been going up on this kind of hidden bearish divergence again, right? So what ends up happening most likely needs to kind of probably back test some of the stuff down here is going to be the top of the Ichimoku line on a weekly in the 60s, possible, or this big giant volume shelf over here in the high 60s, possible, right? Is it going to end up pushing to the bull market support band, which is quickly rising? Right now it's just in the 50s, but when it tests back down, maybe it's going to be in the low 60s, right? A lot of confluences over here. Now, again, the good thing is that currently I'm looking at the weekly chart over here. Over the last few weeks, the buying volume is going up, right? So that's promising. I think there's still maybe a little bit of energy, maybe even push up to like the high 80s, maybe even 90 area, right? Hitting resistance up here. And then it might end up going sideways or end up going down. Trying to find some of these rising supports over here and the support over here in the volume shelves. Trying to figure out where it's going to go before going up further, right? But this RSI here probably needs to cool down here on the weekly. It's just unsustainable. So that's SeaLimited. I short-term cautious, right? Medium term over the next like 6, 12, 18 months. Medium term, potentially bullish, right? Longer term, I'm not sure yet, right? I'm cautious here longer term, right? So that's what I meant by that. Now, I do want to go through a couple other ones here real quick. I know this video is getting a little bit long, but I do want to go through Pingduoduo, PDD, which it's the parent company of Temu. If you have a spouse who shops a lot on Temu, that's basically where the money goes to. So they're actually doing really well internationally in terms of their numbers, in terms of their sales, and they're growing their market share. They're actually doing very well in terms of the business model, and the price shows. Like you're actually getting kind of closer to its all-time high here. It's one of the more unusual, Chinese stock stories is able to do that in terms of its technical. You already flipped this 20-month moving average from resistance to support and turned the 20-month moving average crawling up here for closer to a year now, right? So this is a bull trend. And all it did right now is just basically have a cup and handle pattern over here. You have a breakout over here and just back testing it insofar as finding support, right? So all of this is a very, very bullish development over here. And together with the fact that Hang Seng may be turning bullish in the medium term, it could benefit PDD, more on the medium term, like for the period of months, right? But if it ends up getting rejected, and again, same thing, like I think that there's a potential for Pingduoduo, PDD, to hit the monthly upper Bollinger Band over here, like around the 160 or so, 150, 160 or so. And that's also going to be like this top of this volume show over here, right? I already got rejected over here. But right now, what it's trying to do is really try to form like a big cup and handle over here, right? It's just we're trying to break above this line over here, and you might still have a harder time to kind of do that. But this has been forming, relatively higher highs and higher lows. This is a pretty nice look to it. Again, the one thing that got me concerned is also the volume, right? The volume is not very strong at all. But also, I'm not really seeing any like bearish divergences or anything like that on monthly. So this is a pretty decent chart, if you will. You look at the you look at the Ichimoku cloud. You're gonna see that it already flipped the Tenkan from resistance to support over here for close to 2 years now, right? And right now the Tenkan, the conversion line, is pushing the price up. And you're also seeing that broke inside the new formation of this Ichimoku cloud over here, right? The green line over here. And basically just kind of back test, maybe even back test like the bottom of this cloud over here, found support, then go up, right? So there is room for it to go up. I just wish the volume is a little bit stronger, and also wish that the Hang Seng index is not potentially hitting, strong resistance. But there's a lot of room for it to potentially go up. The trend is very, very nice. So it might just do its own thing. I don't know. But I do worry about the volume here a little bit. And I'll do worry about the volume shove over here a little bit. If it's able to push through, it's probably going to hit the volume shove up here and maybe like 170, and maybe form another higher high and maybe work some stuff out over here before his bullish continuation. But this is probably one of the more bullish stocks that I'm seeing here in terms of the Chinese market. 2-week chart looked very, very nice. Already broke above the cloud, right? The weekly chart, it might, is trying to break above, but you also have seen if it's not able to break above this current strong resistance level over here around the 150s, you might have to kind of back test it down here on the top of the cloud before bullish continuation. That wouldn't be the end of the world, right? So right now you do have a little bit of a bearish divergence over here on the weekly. Price just kind of stay about the same, but the RSI is like, kind of a little bit exhausted over here. So maybe it does need to touch the top of the cloud first before going up. But as far as I'm concerned, like this looks a lot better than JD, and this is better than Baba. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. A couple other stocks that a lot of retail investors have been very, very interested in. I'm just going to go through it real quick. NIO looks absolutely nasty. NIO looks absolutely nasty. The one thing that I saw with NIO, here's the monthly chart NIO. The one thing I saw with NIO is it's got a very, very nice hammer bottom over here. Just like it had a very nice hammer bottom over here, right? Was that the bottom? No. I mean, it was like, what, like 17, 18 bucks, right? What's surprised right now is around like $5. How far did it go down? It went down all the way to like 360, right? 361. Is that a guarantee that this is bottom? No, there's no guarantee. There's never a guarantee of anything. But it's promising that the sell volume over here is decreasing, right? But you're also dealing with like this is also very similar to JD. And this chart actually still looks worse than JD. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to get rid of the Ichimoku cloud. I'm going to show the 20-minute moving average. The chart looks worse than JD. JD went back up and touched a negative sloping 20-minute moving average. NIO is not really even trying to do that. I am not bullish on NIO right now. Is it having some kind of bullish divergence? Yes, it is having some kind of bullish divergence. Price went down, the bottom part of the RSI went up. This is a classic bullish divergence. It's been going on for quite some time, for close to a year and a half now, right? Maybe that's why you're having a little bit of hammer bottom over here, right? Who's there to say it's not going to form another like 5 green candle and it's just going to push it back up and it's going to flatten out the 20-minute moving average, right? Who's there not to say that, right? But is there a guarantee that's going to do that? No, you're just guessing, right? If Tesla does well, if Hang Seng Index does well, I think NIO will probably end up doing very well as well. So let's say, if something totally unexpected happened, let's say if Tesla all of a sudden it just went up, bam, 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 right? You're going to see NIO also going to catch some of the energy to try and get closer to 20-minute moving average. But right now it's still negative sloping. Right now it's still far away from it. And right now, even though you have a hammer bottom over here, there's no guarantee in terms of what's going to happen. You could have another leg down. I don't quite like this look quite just yet. So Ichimoku cloud, same thing, right? Way below the conversion line, way below the baseline. Tenkan or Kijun and other Japanese names for that. But yeah, it's just not looking like there's any kind of confirmation that says bottom. The only thing that's really looking good about this chart is how bad it looks. Like the only thing that's really looking at this chart is how bad it looks. If you look at the 2-week chart, let's see, I'm going to put up some of the other indicators here. Look at Ichimoku cloud. Got rejected by a negative sloping Tenkan and conversion line, right? You did have a bullish engulfing candle over here, right? But and sure enough, the next candle is up, right? But you're getting some rejections over here. So there are opposing forces that are happening. these bullish engulfing candles don't always necessarily work if you have a downtrend, unfortunately, right? Bullish engulfing candle over here doesn't necessarily work when you have a downtrend, right? So that's something to get concerned about. Again, if Tesla does well, you might end up having some positive energy, maybe able to get through some of the resistance, repair some of the technical damage. But so far, it's not, there's no confirmation here on the 2-week chart or even the weekly chart. Weekly chart is trying to maybe like flip the Tenkan, the conversion line here for resistance support. But like you tried to do it over here, really wasn't able to confirm that. You do have some increasing buying volume here over here, which is a little bit promising, but again, there's no guarantee, right? Am I seeing any like significant bullish divergences over here on the weekly chart? Not really. So I guess the moral of the story is that this is still not quite ready, and I'm still worried about it. Would I enter NIO right now looking at this? My answer is no. What about another stock that a lot of people have talked about previously? Xpeng, XPEV. Let's look at the 20-month moving average. This looks a little bit better than NIO, right? At least it's trying to flatten, but it's still pretty far away from price. Like price is still way below the 20-month moving average. It's not really making a lower low, is it? Like it's got a pretty nice hammer look over here, right? And this wick over here actually didn't go as far down as these wicks over here. So this is a better looking chart than NIO, right? If I was to enter, which I'm not, but if I was to enter, I think Xpeng or XPEV may be a better play. But it's still no confirmation. Like the lower bullish trend is like down here. Like there's potentially, if it makes another lick down, especially if it ends up touching the 20 moving average, maybe like closer to 10 or something like that, or 11 or something like that, got rejected, it can make another lick down, it can make a lower low, right? Because there's, so far there's no confirmation that it's going to make a higher low. If anything, this has still got a little bit of like a bear flag look to it, right? So the only thing that's looking good is the 20 moving average is starting to curl sideways, and then you have a hammer bottom potentially over here that could help you to reach the 20-month moving average, and then whatever happens, right? So some of the other indicators, so you look at the Ichimoku cloud, same thing, way far from the Tenkan or the conversion line. It's just way far underneath of it, right? So nowhere near any confirmation that it's going to end up flipping anytime soon. And yeah, like it's not promising yet on the 2-week chart. Again, it got rejected by the 2-week Tenkan, just like NIO, right? It's way below the Ichimoku cloud. On the weekly, it's also got rejected over here. On the weekly, actually, this looks a little bit worse than NIO. It got rejected here by the weekly Tenkan, right? And the cloud is still way far above. So there's still a cause of concern in terms of these like Chinese EV stocks. The one that actually probably looks the best, but even if it looks the best, is also going for a little bit of trouble here is LiAuto, Li. It's just been doing nothing for like years. It's just oscillated around the weekly Ichimoku cloud. On the monthly, it basically also is oscillating between these, Tenkan and Kijun lines over here. Like it had a little bit of bullish cross with prices currently got rejected by the Kijun. Like there's no trend. There's no trend. It does nothing. 2 weeks, it does nothing. It's just oscillating between the cloud. Like it does nothing. So I probably won't be in this either. This is probably like one of the strongest Chinese EV company there is. Is there BYD? Nah, I'm not sure if I know which one it is. I'm not going to chart it. But anyway, there's still a lot of cause of concern in terms of the EV sector. But when you talk about the other stocks, I think that, again, the conclusion is I think there might be some bullishness coming for FUTU, for, potentially for BABA, for PDD. There are a lot of these, like, more bullish stocks that I'm looking at. But the moral of the story is you might have to worry that the Hang Seng Index may be hitting some, pretty important resistance over here soon, if it hasn't already hit, important resistance already, right? It can go out a little bit further to like the 20,000s or 21,000 or something like that. But once you get there, you might end up having some pretty brutal sideways correction or downward correction to try to form a higher low somewhere, somewhere far down below, potentially around the 17,000s before its bullish continuation. But these are Chinese stocks. They can do whatever they want. Like, can they pull another miracle and do one of these things like, back in, yeah, can you pull like one of these things that were just keep on going up, 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 up? Yeah, it can, but so far I would be a little bit more cautious, is my personal opinion. Short term, in the next 6, 12 to 18 months, it's probably going to do okay. But in the long term, I'm also not sure, just because of the comparison between the US equity markets and the Chinese equity markets. I probably would lean towards just, staying with the US stocks. But don't let me stop you from making money if you think that FUTU has an incredible look to it. Oops. You think that FUTU has an incredible look to it. You think that it's going to do one of these crazy moves where it went from like $8 all the way down to like 204. Be my guest. Feel free to do that. I'm just not sure. And even if I'm sure, I don't feel too strongly. I don't know enough about this to want to enter. But it's looking better and better in the medium term, 6, 12 to 18 months. Short term, be cautious. Long term, be cautious. That's my message. Thank you so much. That's a long video. Have a good one. Bye.